The Secret of the Ages by Robert Collier, 1926. In a nutshell, if you have a single powerful purpose, you will have the courage to act on your ideas. In the first decades of the 20th century, many inspirational books were published. Most now obscure. The Secret of the Ages has endured thanks to some updating by the author's family, but also because of its alluring promise to reveal ancient success secrets. In truth, there are few references to ancient cultures or writings within its pages, but it's still a good introduction to ideas that we associate with the modern success movement. Written at a time when there was growing public interest in the powers of the mind, this book's excitable prose and faith in the reader's potential made it a bestseller. Unknown Lands of the Mind. Collier guides the reader through a mental landscape of three levels: the conscious, the subconscious, and superconscious mind. The conscious part of your mind you think of as being you, but represents only a small part of the mind. Successful people have a good relationship between this and their subconscious, which they direct to create things for them and solve their problems. The subconscious part of the brain knows how to do a million things perfectly, including running your body, and will do them if you let it. Savants can play a piece of music perfectly if they have heard it only once, or perform incredible feats of mathematical calculation. Such talents don't come from the conscious mind. Carl Jung believed that the subconscious, he called it the unconscious, contained all the knowledge a person had ever gained, but also the knowledge of every other person who'd lived. This part of the mind is morally neutral, however, and very open to suggestion. If you give the subconscious thoughts and images of plenty and success, it will go to work to make them reality. If you give it negative thoughts, it will create negative circumstances. Collier suggests that the feeling we sometimes get of being guided toward better things or away from bad, expressed in terms such as a guardian angel or kindly genius, is in fact a function of the superconscious mind, that part of us in touch with the all-knowing and all-seeing universal mind. This unseen hand, or the higher self, rather than being the realm of nutcases, is quietly attested to in most people's experience. If asked for assistance, it will be forthcoming. An aristocracy of thinkers and doers. We worry about the loss of forests or running out of oil, Collier says, but we don't seem to care as much about the loss of mental power if we're not using our mind. People eat, sleep, and work without ever realizing the wealth that lies within them. We've all heard that we only use 10% of our brain power. According to Collier, it was the psychologist and philosopher William James who first said this. But even if that's wrong, even if it's 20%, this still leaves an engine running with nowhere to go. To be one of the doers and thinkers, you have to stretch yourself. Collier quotes Orison Swett Marden, who said, "The majority of failures in life are simply the victims of their mental defeats." Individuals who plod along in mediocrity do so because they don't really believe in themselves. Therefore, there's always a way open for the determined soul. Just as a highly magnetized piece of metal can lift another piece 10 times its size, so a highly magnetized person, charged with confidence and purpose, can do at least 10 times more than another who's not so energized. Collier notes that once you've achieved, you're more likely to achieve again because you now have it in you to succeed. In a further analogy, he suggests that when you strongly desire something and believe that you will have it, it sets in motion a mental whirlpool that sucks in the things, people, and circumstances necessary to enable its realization. You develop a momentum, that allows you to continue achieving, but with less energy. The greatest discoveries, Collier notes, came from a person who actually noticed something everyone else had seen. The biggest fortunes, he says, were made out of opportunities that many had, but only one person grasped. It's not that unsuccessful people never see opportunities, they do. But they differ from people who are called winners, in that they rarely have the will or the courage to act on a good idea. They give themselves only the reasons why something couldn't be done, while the winner only thinks of how it could. Success first has to be seen. Collier relentlessly gets to the bottom of what concepts like will, desire, and ambition actually mean, and how they can be utilized. Basic to his thinking is that success must be seen into life through forming images. Why is visualizing something you desire so important to its attainment? Everything made in the real world, Collier says, begins as an image. God imagined the world before it was made, and you too imagine your future before it comes into being. The trick is to take idle image-making and render it purposeful and positive. Collier's treasure mapping technique involves creating a collage with images of the things you want in life. By looking at these images several times a day, you prepare the way for their entry into your life. One woman, at her wit's end and living in poverty, made pictures of a cottage and garden for her and her children to live in, and a shop where she could sell haberdashery. By a strange sequence of events, she had both within 6 months. There's an occult law that power flows from the higher to the lower potential, not the other way around. Therefore, always imagine the best possible outcome, and the forming of reality will follow this design. Intensity of desire and will. It may seem paradoxical, Collier says, but few people do know what they want. Humans may be a bundle of wishes and wants, but unless we hone these hankerings to a sharp point, we'll forever drift in a sea of unfulfillment. He mentions a Chinese proverb, "Great souls have wills, feeble ones have only wishes." You may still recall the childhood instruction to be content with what you've got. But consider that every great thing begins as discontent, with a desire for something different. The challenge is to refine our longings and discontents into a single powerful purpose. You begin this process, suggests Collier, by making a list of everything you could possibly desire, then weeding out the things that won't serve you in the long run. If you're not sure which desires are best, ask, will this tend to make me better, stronger, and more efficient? When you've arrived at your single encompassing desire, or definite ideal, it's easier to cast off the non-essentials of life in a way that the drifting thinker can never contemplate. Using a nautical analogy, Collier says, the definite ideal is like the grain of sand which exists at the center of every pearl, and about which the pearly material has gathered. It's the big idea around which your constructive imagination builds, deposits, and accumulates its wealth of material. Once you have this sense of purpose, be willing to pay the price. Impose discipline on yourself and never let up on attaining your one true desire. If you're not brilliant, it doesn't matter in the long run, because the law of averages means that if you persist, you will reap rewards. Be also aware and grateful of the hidden hand, the guardian angel, that helps you toward achieving your aims. Have faith that you will achieve your aims, just as you have faith that the sun will rise in the morning. Yet this faith is not spiritual, it's rational. Singularity of purpose can produce a relaxed knowing, a faith in your future triumph that all really successful people share. This sense of gratitude and knowing attracts what you want on the principle that like seeks like. Things flow to the person who already appears to have. Final comments. Although it could be classed as a straight prosperity classic, in its urgency to convince readers of their massive potential, The Secret of the Ages is essentially a work of motivation. The book is colored with many poems and verses, and perhaps as you would expect from a master of the sales letter and advertisement, Collier makes liberal use of capitals and exclamation marks. His style is conversational, and he doesn't flinch at repetition to ram home a point. If you find yourself thinking that there's a lack of connective tissue in the book, it's because each chapter was originally released on its own, in the manner of Claeson's The Richest Man in Babylon. At the back is a selection of letters that Collier received over the years from people relating how The Secret of the Ages changed their life. On first reading, it's hard to see how the book could have had such an impact. To the contemporary success aficionado, its ideas and language will seem dated, but its message that you can be the master of your fate is still an inspiring one, and the book contains truths that, if put into practice, will bring the success you desire. Robert Collier. Born in St. Louis in 1885, Collier was educated at a church school and trained to become a priest. Deciding that the life of the cloth wasn't for him, he went to West Virginia and for 8 years worked as a mining engineer. After moving to New York City, he worked in advertising for the P.F. Collier Publishing Company. His uncle had founded Collier's Magazine and became an expert at writing sales copy, generating millions of dollars for the firm. His booklet, The $1 Million Sales Letters, is a classic marketing work. Following a serious but undiagnosed illness, which Collier felt he had cured by mental power, he read voluminously to discover the laws and secrets of the mind. Wanting to make what he knew more accessible, he wrote and published a series of short books, The Secret of the Ages, later put into one volume. Another series, The Law of the Higher Potential, is now known as Riches Within Your Reach. His other books include Prayer Works and The Amazing Secrets of the Masters of the Far East. Collier died in 1950